The elevator doors opened on the 42nd floor, and Deanna Edwards stepped into a world of glass and steel that seemed designed to intimidate anyone who walked through it. She clutched her leather portfolio against her chest, feeling the weight of every decision that had led her to this moment. When the hospital administrator had called her 3 days ago about a private client needing intensive physical therapy after a traumatic accident, she had almost said no. Almost. But the salary they offered for 6 months of exclusive care was enough to pay off her student loans and her mother's medical bills in one sweep. Miss Edwards. A woman in a pristine gray suit approached her with a tight smile that did not reach her eyes. "I'm Patricia Vance, Mr. Zaffiro's executive assistant. He's expecting you in the West Wing. Please follow me." Deanna nodded and fell into step beside Patricia, her sneakers squeaking softly against the marble floor. The office occupied the entire top floor of the Zaffiro Tower in downtown Manhattan, and every surface gleamed with the kind of wealth that made her tiny apartment in Queens feel like a different planet entirely. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows, the city sprawled beneath them, miniature and manageable from this height. "Mr. Zaffiro was in a serious car accident 4 months ago," Patricia said without looking at Deanna. Her heels clicked a steady rhythm as they walked. "Multiple fractures, spinal trauma, extensive soft tissue damage. He's had 3 surgeries and been through 2 physical therapists already." "What happened with the previous therapists?" Deanna asked, though she suspected she already knew the answer. Patricia's lips pressed into a thin line. "Mr. Zaffiro can be difficult. He's not accustomed to being told what to do, and he's even less accustomed to being vulnerable. The last therapist lasted exactly 5 days before she quit. Said he was impossible to work with." They stopped in front of a set of double doors, and Patricia turned to face Deanna fully for the first time. Her expression was somewhere between warning and plea. "He needs help, Miss Edwards. Real help. But he's going to fight you every step of the way. If you're not prepared for that, it's better to walk away now." Deanna straightened her shoulders and met Patricia's gaze directly. "I've worked with trauma patients for 7 years. I've had combat veterans, car accident survivors, stroke patients who couldn't remember their own names. I didn't come here to give up at the first sign of resistance." Something that might have been respect flickered across Patricia's face. She knocked twice on the door and then pushed it open without waiting for a response. The room beyond was enormous, converted from what must have once been a corner office into something resembling a luxury rehabilitation suite. Medical equipment stood alongside expensive furniture, and one entire wall was dedicated to floor-to-ceiling bookshelves filled with leather-bound volumes. In the center of the room, facing away from them in a motorized wheelchair, sat a man with dark hair that fell just past his collar. "Mr. Zaffiro, Miss Edwards is here," Patricia announced. The wheelchair rotated slowly, and Deanna got her first look at Logan Zaffiro. He was younger than she expected, maybe 35 at most, with sharp features that might have been handsome if they were not twisted into an expression of barely contained fury. His gray eyes fixed on her with an intensity that made her want to step backward, but she held her ground. "Another one," he said, and his voice was rough, like he had not used it much lately. "What makes you think you'll last any longer than the others?" Deanna walked forward until she was standing directly in front of him, close enough that he had to tilt his head slightly to maintain eye contact. "Because I don't scare easily, and because you need me a lot more than I need you." His eyebrows rose fractionally. Patricia made a small sound that might have been a gasp or a laugh, quickly stifled. "I'll leave you two to get acquainted," Patricia said quickly, and Deanna heard the doors close behind her with a soft click. Logan continued to stare at Deanna, clearly waiting for her to flinch or apologize or backtrack. She did none of those things. Instead, she set her portfolio down on a nearby table and pulled out a folder, flipping it open to review his medical charts. Fractured L3 and L4 vertebrae, compound fracture of the right femur, shattered pelvis, torn rotator cuff, and significant nerve damage in your lower extremities, she read aloud. You've regained about 60% mobility in your legs, but you're refusing to do the exercises that would improve that. You're on too many pain medications, and according to these notes, you spend most of your time sitting in that chair staring out the window. Are you quite finished? His voice was ice. No. Deanna closed the folder and looked at him. You're angry, I get that. You're in pain and you're scared and you've lost control of your body and your life. But if you keep going the way you're going, this is it. This is as good as it gets. Is that what you want? What I want, Logan said slowly, each word deliberate, is for everyone to stop pretending they know what I'm going through. What I want is to be left alone. Then you're in luck, because I don't pretend to know what you're going through. Every person's pain is their own. Deanna pulled a chair over and sat down so they were at eye level. But I do know the human body, and I know that yours is capable of a lot more healing than you're allowing it to do. So, here's the deal. Give me 2 weeks. Let me do my job, and if at the end of that time you genuinely believe I'm not helping, I'll walk away and you can sit in this room for the rest of your life if that's what you want. Logan's jaw clenched, a muscle jumping beneath the stubble on his cheek. And if I say no right now, then I leave, and you confirm what everyone already thinks, that the great Logan Zaffiro gives up when things get hard. For a long moment, she thought he might actually tell her to get out. His hands gripped the arms of his wheelchair so tightly his knuckles went white. But then something shifted in his expression, something that looked almost like curiosity breaking through the anger. 2 weeks, he said finally, but I'm not making any promises. I'm not asking for promises. I'm asking for effort. Deanna stood and checked her watch. We start in 20 minutes. I need you in loose clothing that allows for movement. Can you transfer yourself to the bed, or do you need assistance? I can manage, he bit out. Good, I'll be back. Deanna picked up her portfolio and walked toward the doors, but before she left, she glanced back over her shoulder. And Mr. Zaffiro, you might want to work on your attitude. We're going to be spending a lot of time together. She did not wait to see his reaction before she stepped out into the hallway, pulling the doors closed behind her. Her heart was racing, adrenaline pumping through her system. Patricia was waiting a few feet away, her expression anxious. Well, the assistant asked, are you leaving? Deanna allowed herself a small smile. Not yet. Where can I change? I've got work to do. 25 minutes later, Deanna returned to find Logan on the specialized physical therapy bed, wearing loose athletic pants and a t-shirt that had clearly been expensive before the accident, and now hung slightly loose on his frame. He had lost weight, she noted. Probably from a combination of inactivity and pain killing his appetite. All right, she said, setting down her bag and pulling out her portable equipment. We're going to start with an assessment. I need to see your current range of motion and pain levels. This isn't going to be comfortable, but I need you to tell me honestly what you're feeling. Rate everything on a scale of 1 to 10. Logan said nothing, but he did not protest when she approached the bed. Deanna began with his upper body, carefully manipulating his arms and shoulders, noting the way he tensed when she moved his right shoulder through certain angles. Pain level, she asked. 6, he said through gritted teeth. Tingling or numbness? Some tingling down my arm. She made notes, then moved to his legs. This was where the real damage had occurred, and she could see the scars through the thin material of his pants, long surgical incisions that marked where doctors had pieced him back together. When she touched his right leg, he jerked slightly. "That's about a 7, he said before she could ask. "Can you lift your leg for me? Just a few inches." He tried, and she watched the muscles in his thigh strain with effort. His foot lifted maybe 2 inches off the bed before he had to let it drop back down, breathing hard. "That's better than the charts suggested," Deanna said, and she meant it. "You've got more strength there than the last assessment indicated. Have you been doing any exercises on your own?" "Sometimes." The admission came reluctantly. "At night when I can't sleep." "Good, that's good." Deanna moved to his left leg, which responded better, though still far from normal. "You've got a long road ahead, but this is a solid starting point. The nerve damage is the biggest concern. How's your sensation? Can you feel this?" She pressed her fingers against the sole of his foot. "Barely." "It's like there's cotton between your hand and my skin." Deanna nodded, making more notes. "That's actually not uncommon with this type of injury. The good news is that nerves can regenerate, but it's slow. We're talking months, not weeks. But there are exercises and treatments that can help speed up the process." She spent the next hour putting him through a gentle but thorough evaluation, and by the end of it, Logan was sweating and pale, his jaw clenched against obvious pain. Deanna helped him back into his wheelchair and handed him a bottle of water. "You did well," she said. "I know that was not easy. Is this the part where you tell me it gets easier?" There was bitterness in his voice, but also exhaustion. "No." Deanna pulled up a chair and sat down. "It's going to get harder before it gets easier. The exercises we need to do are going to hurt, and there will be days when you'll hate me for pushing you. But if you stick with it, if you really commit to this, I believe you can get back maybe 85% of your pre-accident mobility. You might always have some pain and you'll probably need a cane for stability, but you can walk again. Really walk." Logan looked down at his hands, and for the first time since she arrived, the anger seemed to drain out of him, leaving behind something raw and vulnerable. "Do you know what the accident was?" he asked quietly. Deanna shook her head. "I wasn't given details." "I was driving back from a construction site, one of my real estate developments in Westchester. It was raining, and some kid in a pickup truck ran a red light going 60 miles an hour. He paused, his throat working. "He walked away with a concussion and a broken arm. I was airlifted to Manhattan Presbyterian, and they weren't sure I'd make it through the first night." "But you did," Deanna said softly. "Yeah. And then I woke up and couldn't move my legs, couldn't control my own body, couldn't even sit up without help. Do you have any idea what that's like? Going from running a billion-dollar real estate empire to not being able to get out of bed to take a piss." Diana let the silence stretch for a moment before answering. "My dad had a stroke when I was 16. One minute he was this big, strong construction foreman who could lift me up with one arm, and the next he was lying in a hospital bed, half his face paralyzed, unable to speak. It took him 2 years to learn to walk again, and his speech never fully recovered. But he kept fighting. Every single day, even when he wanted to give up, he kept fighting. And you know what he told me once after it was all over?" "What?" He said the hardest part was not the pain or the therapy or even the disability. It was accepting that he needed help, that he could not do it alone. Deanna met Logan's gaze steadily. "You don't have to do this alone, Mr. Zaffiro. That's why I'm here." Logan was quiet for a long time, staring at something Diana could not see. When he finally spoke, his voice was rough. "Logan, if we're going to do this, you should call me Logan." "Okay." "And I'm Deanna." She stood and gathered her equipment. "I'll be back tomorrow morning at 8. Try to get some rest tonight, and for the love of God, eat something. You need fuel if we're going to rebuild your strength." Diana, he stopped her as she reached the door. Why do you do this? The pay must be good for this job, but I've read your resume. You were one of the top therapists at Mount Sinai. You could have stayed there. She considered the question, then decided on honesty. My mom has cancer, stage 3 ovarian. The treatment is expensive, and insurance does not cover everything. This job pays enough to take care of her and my dad, who can't work full-time anymore because of his stroke. So yeah, I'm here for the money, but that doesn't mean I'm not also here to help you. Both things can be true. Logan nodded slowly, something shifting in his expression. I'm sorry about your mom. Thank you. Deanna opened the door, then paused. And Logan, I'm sorry too about the accident, about all of it. But feeling sorry for yourself won't fix anything, so tomorrow we fight back. She left before he could respond, but as the elevator descended toward the ground floor, she allowed herself a moment of cautious optimism. It was not much, but it was a start, and in her experience, starts were all you needed. The rest was just showing up, day after day, until the impossible became possible. The next morning, Deanna arrived at 7:45 to find Logan already awake, sitting in his wheelchair by the window with a cup of coffee in his hands. He had shaved, she noticed, and his hair was damp from a shower. It was a small thing, but it meant something. You're early, he said without turning around. So are you. Deanna set down her bag and began laying out equipment. Did you eat breakfast? Patricia brought me something. That's not what I asked. He gestured toward a nearby table where a plate held the remains of scrambled eggs and toast. Satisfied? It's a start. Deanna rolled over the portable therapy equipment she had requested be delivered overnight. Today we're going to focus on core strength and balance. Your spine is stable enough now that we can start working on the muscles that support it. It's going to be uncomfortable. Everything is uncomfortable, Logan said flatly, but he wheeled himself over to the therapy bed without protest. They worked for 2 hours, and Deanna pushed him harder than the previous day, making him hold positions that made his muscles shake and sweat pour down his face. More than once she saw him blink back what might have been tears of pain or frustration or both, but he did not ask her to stop. When she finally called for a break, he collapsed back against the bed, breathing hard. I hate you right now, he gasped. Good, use that. Deanna handed him water and a towel. Anger is fuel, pain is just your body's way of saying it's changing. You're doing great, Logan, really. Don't patronize me, I'm not. You lasted the full 2 hours without giving up. That's more than most people manage on their second day. Deanna checked her notes. How's the pain? Honestly, it feels like someone is driving nails into my spine. Then we'll take a longer break. 20 minutes. Then we'll do some water therapy in the pool Patricia told me was installed last week. Logan's eyes narrowed. There's a pool in the next room, heated with adjustable resistance jets. Water therapy is one of the best things for your type of injuries. The buoyancy takes pressure off your spine while still letting you work your muscles. If there's a pool, why didn't the other therapists use it? Diana shrugged. Maybe you did not let them get that far. Come on, let's get you into swim trunks. The pool turned out to be a small but sophisticated lap pool with rails and specialized equipment. Deanna helped Logan transfer from his wheelchair to the pool lift, then lowered him into the warm water. She had changed into her own swimsuit under her clothes, and she slipped into the pool beside him. Okay, hold onto the rail with both hands, she instructed. I'm going to support your legs, and I want you to try to float on your back. It took several attempts and a lot of adjusting, but eventually, Logan was floating with Deanna's hands supporting him at the small of his back and under his knees. The water lapped gently around them, and Diana could feel some of the tension leaving his body as the warmth seeped into his muscles. "How does this feel?" she asked. "Strange," Logan admitted. "Like I'm weightless. It doesn't hurt as much. That's the point. In the water, we can work on movements that would be too painful on land. Over time, we'll build up your strength until those same movements become possible out of the water too." Deanna slowly removed her hand from under his knees. "Can you keep your legs up on your own?" Logan's face contorted with concentration and his legs dipped slightly, but he managed to keep them mostly elevated. Deanna watched carefully, counting silently to 30 before allowing him to drop his feet back down to touch the bottom of the pool. "Excellent," she said. "That's real progress. Let's try some walking." She guided him to the shallow end where the water came to his chest and positioned herself beside him. "Use the rail for support and try to walk along the edge of the pool. I'm right here if you need me." Logan gripped the rail and took a tentative step forward. His right leg dragged slightly, but it moved. Another step, then another. Deanna kept pace with him, her hands ready to catch him if he stumbled but not touching him unless necessary. By the time he reached the end of the pool, about 12 feet later, he was breathing hard, but there was something new in his expression. Something that almost looked like hope. "I walked," he said, staring down at his legs beneath the clear water as if he could not quite believe they belonged to him. "You walked," Deanna confirmed, smiling. "And tomorrow you'll walk further. That's how this works. Small victories that add up to big changes." They stayed in the pool for another 30 minutes, working through a series of exercises that grew progressively more challenging. By the time Deanna helped Logan out and back into his wheelchair, he was exhausted but less tense than she had seen him yet. "Same time tomorrow?" she asked as she toweled off. "Yeah." Logan paused, then added, "Thank you for today. You did the work. I just made sure you did not drown." Deanna gathered her things. "Get some rest, and Logan, you should be proud of yourself. What you did today was not easy." As the days turned into a week, then two, a routine emerged. Deanna arrived every morning at 8, and she and Logan worked for 4 to 5 hours with breaks in between. She learned to read his moods, to know when to push and when to back off, when he needed encouragement and when he needed silence. She learned that he was more likely to cooperate if she explained the purpose behind each exercise, that his stubbornness could be redirected into determination if she framed things the right way. Logan, for his part, stopped fighting her quite so hard. He still had bad days when the pain was overwhelming and he snapped at her or refused to complete a set, but those days grew less frequent. He began to ask questions about the therapy, about anatomy, about her techniques. And slowly, cautiously, he began to talk about other things too. "Tell me about your family," Deanna said one afternoon as she worked on his legs, massaging the muscles to improve circulation. They were in the second week, and she was sitting on a stool beside the therapy bed while he lay on his back. Logan was quiet for a moment. "Not much to tell. My father built Zaffiro real estate from nothing. Started out flipping houses in Brooklyn and ended up developing half of Manhattan. He died of a heart attack when I was 25, and I took over the company. That's young to inherit that kind of responsibility." "Yeah, well, I did not have much choice. My mother passed away when I was a kid and I'm an only child. It was either step up or watch everything my father built fall apart." He paused. "What about you? Besides your parents, do you have siblings? A younger brother. He's a teacher in Philadelphia." "We talk every week, but we're not as close as we used to be. Life just sort of pulled us in different directions." Deanna finished the massage and moved to stretch his ankle, rotating it slowly. "Pain level 4. That actually feels good. It's supposed to." Deanna worked in silence for a few minutes, then asked, "Did you have anyone? Before the accident, I mean. A girlfriend, a partner?" Logan's expression darkened. I was engaged. Her name was Victoria. We'd been together for 3 years, engaged for 6 months. She was at the hospital every day for the first 2 weeks after the accident, crying and holding my hand and telling me everything would be okay. What happened? I got better, or at least stable enough to move here instead of staying in the hospital. And slowly, she started coming around less. She was busy with work, or she had a headache, or her mother needed her. And then one day, about 2 months after the accident, she came by and gave me the ring back. Said she loved me, but she could not handle watching me like this. She wanted the man she fell in love with, not whatever I'd become. Deanna felt a surge of anger on his behalf, but kept her voice even. That must have hurt. It did, but I can't blame her, not really. This isn't the life either of us signed up for. Logan looked away, his jaw tight. Besides, she was right. I'm not the same person anymore. No one is the same person they were yesterday, let alone months ago. People change. That's life. Deanna set his foot down gently. But if she left because things got hard, then she was not the right person anyway. You deserve someone who stays. Logan looked at her then, really looked at her, and Deanna felt something shift in the air between them. It was there and gone in a moment, but it left her feeling oddly breathless. "Your turn," Logan said, his voice a little rough. "Why aren't you married or dating or whatever?" "You're smart, you're dedicated, he stopped himself. "I'm sure you have options." Deanna laughed, though it came out more bitter than she intended. "I was in a relationship for about a year, right before I took this job. Another physical therapist, actually. We worked together at Mount Sinai. But it turned out he was more interested in my apartment and my paycheck than he was in me. When I told him I was taking this job and moving out of our shared place, he asked if I could keep paying my half of the rent anyway since he'd gotten used to it. Please tell me you said no." I told him to go to hell and moved out that same week. Deanna stood and stretched her back, rolling her shoulders. "Between work and taking care of my parents, I don't have time for relationships anyway. And after that disaster, I'm not exactly eager to trust someone new." "Well," Logan said dryly, "we make quite a pair, don't we? The crippled billionaire and the therapist with trust issues." "You're not crippled," Deanna said sharply. "You're healing. There's a difference." Something that might have been a smile tugged at the corner of Logan's mouth. "You really don't let me feel sorry for myself, do you?" "Not for a second. That's what you pay me for." Deanna checked her watch. "All right, lunch break. Then we'll work on sitting balance this afternoon. Patricia said she'd have food sent up. Try to eat more than half of it this time." As Deanna headed toward the small bathroom to wash up, Logan called after her. "Deanna, I'm glad you're here. I know I did not make it easy at first, but I'm glad it was you who walked through that door." Deanna turned back, and the sincerity in his expression made her chest feel tight. "I'm glad too," she said softly, and she meant it more than she probably should. The weeks continued to pass, and Deanna watched Logan transform before her eyes. It was not just the physical changes, though those were dramatic. He was walking with the support of parallel bars now, able to take 20 or 30 steps before his legs gave out. The pain levels were decreasing as his strength increased, and his doctor had started reducing his pain medications. But it was more than that. He smiled more. He joked with Patricia, even teased Diana when she was being particularly strict about his exercises. The anger that had surrounded him like armor when they first met had been replaced by something warmer, more open, and Deanna was not immune to it. She found herself looking forward to their sessions, not just because of his progress, but because she enjoyed his company. He was smart and funny when he let himself be, and he had a way of really listening when she talked that made her feel heard. They started having lunch together, then dinner sometimes when their sessions ran long. Patricia would order food, and they would eat while discussing everything from books to politics to ridiculous celebrity gossip. "I can't believe you actually watched that show," Logan said one evening, laughing so hard he nearly choked on his pasta. They were sitting at the table in his room, 3 months into Deanna's tenure, and outside the windows the city lights were beginning to twinkle on. "It was research," Deanna protested, trying to keep a straight face. "My roommate in college was obsessed with it, and I needed to understand what all the hype was about. And it was terrible, but also addictive. I watched all 7 seasons in 2 weeks." Logan shook his head, grinning. "You're something else. You know that?" Deanna felt her cheeks warm and looked down at her plate. Moments like this had been happening more often lately, little sparks of something she was trying very hard not to name. Because naming it would make it real, and making it real would be complicated and probably inappropriate given their professional relationship. "How's your mom doing?" Logan asked, shifting the conversation. "You mentioned she had a treatment last week." Diana's smile faded. "It's rough. The chemo makes her so sick, and she's lost most of her hair now. But the doctors say the tumors are shrinking, so we're hopeful. My dad is being amazing, taking care of her, making sure she eats even when she doesn't want to. I try to visit them in Queens every Sunday, but sometimes I'm just so exhausted from the week that I'm not great company." "You should take more time off," Logan said seriously. "I mean it, Deanna. You're here 6 days a week, sometimes 7. You need to take care of yourself too." "I'm fine." "You're running yourself into the ground." Logan reached across the table and covered her hand with his. The touch was warm, his palm rough against her skin. "Take Sunday off this week. Hell, take the whole weekend. I can manage on my own for 2 days. Deanna looked at their joined hands, her heart beating faster than it should. "Logan, I'm serious. And before you argue, think about it this way: you'll be a better therapist if you're not exhausted. So really, you're doing it for my benefit." She laughed despite herself and pulled her hand away gently, already missing the warmth. "Fine, this weekend. But you have to promise me you'll do your exercises on your own. I'm going to quiz you on Monday. Deal?" That Sunday, Deanna took the subway to her parents' small house in Queens, arriving just after noon with bags of groceries and her mother's favorite flowers. Her father answered the door, and Deanna was struck by how much older he looked than she remembered. The stroke had aged him, but worry for her mother had aged him even more. "Diana, sweetheart," he said, pulling her into a hug. His speech was still slightly slurred but much improved from the early days. "Your mom's been asking for you. She's having a good day today." Deanna found her mother in the living room, wrapped in blankets despite the warm summer day. She had been a vibrant woman once, full of energy and laughter. The cancer had whittled her down to something fragile and bird-like, but her eyes still sparkled when she saw Deanna. "There's my girl," her mother said, her voice weak but warm. "Come sit with me." Deanna spent the afternoon with her parents, cooking dinner while her father told stories that made her mother laugh, sitting on the couch with her mother's head on her shoulder while they watched old movies. As evening approached and Deanna reluctantly prepared to leave, her mother caught her hand. "You look different," she said, studying Deanna's face. "Happier, less stressed." "I'm just tired, Mom." "No," her mother shook her head slightly. "It's more than that. You're glowing. Is there someone?" "A man." Deanna felt her face heat. "Mom, no, I'm just working. You know that. Your father glowed like that when we first met. Love looks like that." Her mother squeezed her hand with what little strength she had. "Don't let it pass you by because you're afraid, sweetheart. Life is too short." "I'm not," Deanna started to protest, but her mother's knowing look stopped her. "It's complicated. It always is, but that doesn't make it any less worth fighting for." Her mother's eyes were growing heavy with exhaustion. "Promise me you'll be open to happiness. wherever it comes from. I promise, Deanna whispered, kissing her mother's forehead. On the subway ride back to her apartment, Deanna could not stop thinking about her mother's words. Was it that obvious? Had she really fallen for Logan without even realizing it? And if she had, what was she supposed to do about it? He was her client. She was being paid to help him heal, not to develop feelings for him. It was unprofessional at best, and at worst it could jeopardize everything they had built together. But as she lay in bed that night, staring at the ceiling of her tiny bedroom, she could not deny the truth anymore. Somewhere between the first day when he had looked at her with such anger, and now, when he smiled at her like she was the best part of his day, she had fallen completely in love with Logan Zaffiro. The next morning, Diana arrived at Logan's office determined to be more professional, to put some distance between them before things went any further. But the moment she walked through the doors and saw Logan actually standing using only a cane for support, all her resolutions flew out of her head. "Surprise," he said, his smile so wide it transformed his entire face. "I've been practicing all weekend. Watch this." He took 3 steps forward without using the cane at all, his movements still careful but steady. Deanna's hands flew to her mouth, tears springing to her eyes. "Logan, that's incredible. When did you? Saturday morning. I woke up and just decided to try and I could do it." He took another step. "I'm not ready to run a marathon yet, but this is something, right?" "This is everything," Deanna said, and before she could think about it, she crossed the room and threw her arms around him. Logan caught her automatically, his arms wrapping around her waist to steady them both. For a moment they just stood there, Diana's face pressed against his chest, his chin resting on top of her head. She could feel his heart beating fast, matching her own. "Thank you," Logan said quietly, his voice rough with emotion. "None of this would have happened without you." Deanna pulled back slightly to look up at him, and the expression on his face made her breath catch. There was gratitude there, yes, but also something deeper, something that made her feel like she was standing on the edge of a cliff. "Logan, she started, but she did not know how to finish. What was she going to say? That she had fallen in love with him, that every day with him was both the best and most terrifying part of her life. "Diana," Logan said, and his hand came up to cup her cheek, his thumb brushing across her skin. "I need to tell you something. I've been trying to find the right moment, but I don't think there is a right moment, so I'm just going to say it. These past few months with you have been the hardest of my life, but also the best. You make me want to be better. You make me believe I can be better. And somewhere along the way I fell in love with you." Diana's heart stopped, then started again at double speed. "You love me, completely, hopelessly." Logan smiled, but there was uncertainty in his eyes. "I know this complicates things. I know I'm still your client and there are probably rules about this, and if you don't feel the same way I'll understand and we can pretend this conversation never happened, but I had to tell you. I couldn't keep pretending anymore." Diana stared at him, her mind racing. This was everything she had been afraid to even hope for, being offered to her freely. And her mother's words echoed in her head, "Don't let it pass you by because you're afraid." "I love you too," she whispered, and Logan's expression transformed into pure joy. "I've been trying not to because I thought it was wrong or unprofessional or too complicated, but I can't help it. You're brilliant and stubborn and infuriating, and I can't imagine not being with you." Logan laughed, and then his hand slid into her hair and he was kissing her. It was gentle at first, tentative, like they were both afraid of breaking something precious. But then Deanna's arms wrapped around his neck and Logan pulled her closer, and the kiss deepened into something that felt like coming home. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Logan rested his forehead against hers. "So what do we do now?" "Well," Deanna said, trying to catch her breath and her scattered thoughts. "Technically, you're still my client for 3 more months. And there are ethical guidelines about therapist-patient relationships. So we wait." Deanna bit her lip, considering. Then she thought about her mother, about how little time any of them really had, about how stupid it would be to waste a single moment of potential happiness because of rules. Or we acknowledge that this is unusual, but we're both adults capable of maintaining professional boundaries. I'll continue as your therapist for the remaining 3 months, but outside of our therapy sessions, we can see each other, date properly, figure this out. Logan's smile was brilliant. "I can work with that. So, Deanna Edwards, would you have dinner with me tonight? Somewhere that's not this office with takeout containers." "I would love to," Deanna said, and she felt like she might float away with happiness. "But first, we have 4 hours of therapy scheduled, and just because you can walk now doesn't mean you get to slack off." Logan groaned dramatically, but he was laughing. "Slave driver, you love it." "I love you," he corrected, stealing one more quick kiss. "But fine, let's do this therapy thing. The sooner we're done, the sooner I can take you on a proper date." The next 3 months were a careful balance of professional and personal. During their therapy sessions, Diana remained firmly in therapist mode, pushing Logan through increasingly challenging exercises as his mobility continued to improve. He graduated from a cane to walking unassisted for longer periods, though he still tired easily and kept the cane for stability when he was fatigued or going longer distances. But outside those sessions, they explored their relationship with the kind of careful wonder of 2 people who could not quite believe their luck. Logan took Deanna to restaurants she had only read about, not to show off his wealth, but to share experiences he loved. They went to museums and walked slowly through Central Park, Logan's endurance improving every week. He met Diana's parents, sitting with them in their small living room and talking with her father about construction and architecture, charming her mother by bringing her favorite tea from a specialty shop downtown. Deanna learned that Logan was generous but private, that he gave enormous amounts to charity but never wanted recognition for it. She learned that he had a terrible sweet tooth and would eat an entire pint of ice cream if she did not stop him. She learned that he had nightmares sometimes about the accident, and on those nights she stayed with him, holding him until the fear passed and he fell back asleep. Logan learned that Deanna sang off-key in the shower, that she was terrible at video games but refused to admit it, that she cried during sad movies but got angry during injustice documentaries. He learned that she was fiercely protective of the people she loved and had a stubborn streak that rivaled his own. He learned that she made him want to be better, to deserve the faith she had in him. They fell deeper in love with each passing day, and by the time Diana's 6-month contract was approaching its end, Logan was walking without assistance and had even started returning to his office part-time. His doctors were calling his recovery remarkable, even miraculous. Deanna knew it was simply the result of hard work and determination, but she was proud of him nonetheless. 2 weeks before her contract ended, Logan asked her to come to his apartment for dinner. She had been there many times by now, but something in his tone suggested this was different. Deanna arrived to find candles lit throughout the space, soft music playing, and Logan cooking in the kitchen wearing an apron over his dress shirt and slacks. "You cook?" Deanna asked, delighted. "I'm full of surprises." Logan grinned and gestured for her to sit at the dining table, which had been set with fine china and crystal glasses. "Tonight is special." "What's the occasion?" "Patience. Let me feed you first." The meal was delicious pan-seared salmon with roasted vegetables, and a salad that actually tasted like something from a restaurant. They talked and laughed, and Deanna felt the same sense of contentment she always felt around Logan, like all the scattered pieces of her life had finally clicked into place. After dinner, Logan took her hand and led her to the floor-to-ceiling windows that overlooked the city. The lights spread out before them like a carpet of stars, and Deanna never got tired of this view. "When I first had the accident," Logan said quietly, his arm around her waist, "I thought my life was over. I couldn't see any future worth living. Every day was just pain and anger and this horrible feeling that I was trapped in a body that didn't work anymore." "Logan, let me finish," he said gently. "And then you walked through my door and you didn't take any of my crap. You pushed me and challenged me and made me want to fight back. You saw me at my absolute worst and you didn't run away. You stayed, even when I gave you every reason not to. You helped me heal, Deanna, not just my body but everything. You taught me what real strength looks like." Deanna felt tears building in her eyes. "You did the hard part. I just showed you the way. You were the way." Logan turned to face her fully, and Diana's breath caught when she saw him reach into his pocket. "I know this might seem fast to some people. We've only been together for a few months, and I'm still not 100% healed. But I've never been more sure of anything in my life. You're my future, Deanna, the only future I want." He lowered himself carefully to one knee, and Deanna's hands flew to her mouth as tears spilled down her cheeks. "Deanna Edwards," Logan said, opening a small velvet box to reveal a stunning diamond ring. "Will you marry me? Will you let me spend the rest of my life showing you how much I love you, how grateful I am that you walked into my life when I needed you most?" "Yes," Deanna said, the word coming out as half laugh, half sob. "Yes, of course, yes." Logan stood, his movements still careful but steady, and slipped the ring onto her finger. Then he was kissing her, and Deanna was laughing and crying at the same time, overwhelmed by the sheer magnitude of her happiness. "I love you," she said against his lips. "I love you so much." "I love you too," Logan murmured back. "My healer, my savior, my everything." They were married 6 months later in a small ceremony at a historic estate overlooking the Hudson River. Diana's parents were there, her mother in remission and growing stronger every day. Logan's business partners and friends filled the seats, along with Diana's former colleagues from Mount Sinai who had become her friends over the years. Patricia cried during the vows, something Deanna never thought she would see. When the officiant pronounced them husband and wife, Logan kissed Deanna like it was the first time and the last time all at once, and she felt like her heart might burst from joy. They danced their first dance as a married couple to a song about finding love in unexpected places, and Logan held her close and whispered all the ways he planned to make her happy for the rest of their lives. A year later, Deanna stood in the nursery of their new apartment, decorated in soft yellows and greens, putting the finishing touches on the room. Logan came up behind her and wrapped his arms around her waist, his hands settling on the swell of her pregnant belly. "How are my girls doing?" he asked, pressing a kiss to her neck. "Your daughter is using my bladder as a trampoline," Deanna said, leaning back against him, "but otherwise we're perfect." Logan turned her around to face him, his expression soft with wonder. "I can't believe this is my life, that you're my life. Sometimes I still have to pinch myself." "Well, stop pinching yourself and help me put this crib together. She'll be here in 6 weeks and we need to be ready." "Yes, madam," Logan said with a mock salute, but he was smiling, "though I maintain that the instructions are deliberately confusing." Deanna laughed and kissed him. Even after all this time, kissing Logan still felt like magic. She thought about the scared, angry man she had met that first day, and the journey they had taken together to get here. It had not been easy. There had been setbacks and struggles, days when Logan's pain flared up or he got frustrated with his limitations. There had been adjustments to their relationship as they navigated from therapist and patient to partners to spouses. But through it all, they had chosen each other. Every single day, they chose love over fear, patience over frustration, hope over despair. And that choice had built something beautiful and strong and lasting. 2 years after that, Deanna sat on a blanket in Central Park watching her daughter Emma toddle around on chubby legs while Logan chased after her, making monster noises that sent Emma into fits of giggles. Her mother sat beside her, healthy and cancer-free for 3 years now, laughing at Logan's antics. "He's a good father," her mother said. "You chose well, sweetheart." "I think we chose each other," Deanna said, smiling as Logan scooped Emma up and spun her around, both of them laughing. "I certainly wasn't looking for love when I took that job. I just needed the money. And look what you found instead." Her mother patted her hand. "Sometimes the best things in life are the ones we don't plan for. You helped him heal, and in doing so, you healed yourself. You both deserved that happiness." Deanna thought about the journey they had all taken. Her mother's recovery, her father's continued improvement, Logan's transformation from a broken man in a wheelchair to the vibrant father chasing their daughter around the park. And her own journey, from a woman so focused on taking care of everyone else that she had forgotten how to let someone take care of her. Logan jogged back over, slightly out of breath but grinning, with Emma perched on his shoulders. "Someone wants her mama," he said, lifting Emma down and passing her to Deanna. Emma immediately cuddled into Deanna's chest, her little hand clutching Deanna's shirt. Deanna kissed her daughter's head, breathing in the sweet baby scent that she knew would not last much longer. "Love you," Logan said, sitting down beside them and wrapping an arm around Deanna's shoulders. "Love you too," Deanna replied, and she meant it with every fiber of her being. 5 years after that first meeting in Logan's office, they stood together on the balcony of their home, watching the sun set over the city. Emma was inside with Deanna's parents, probably getting thoroughly spoiled. Logan pulled Deanna close, and she rested her head on his shoulder. "Do you remember the first thing you said to me?" Logan asked quietly. Deanna thought back to that day that felt like a lifetime ago. "I said you needed me more than I needed you. You were right." Logan pressed a kiss to her temple. "I needed you to show me how to live again, how to hope again, how to believe that my life could still have meaning and joy and purpose. You gave me everything, Deanna. Everything that matters." "We gave each other everything," Deanna corrected. "You taught me that it's okay to be vulnerable, to accept help, to let someone love me completely. You taught me that strength comes in many forms, and sometimes the bravest thing you can do is admit you cannot do it alone." "We make a good team," Logan said. "The best team," Deanna agreed. They stood there in comfortable silence as the sky turned from orange to purple to deep blue, the city lights beginning to sparkle below them. Deanna thought about all the moments that had led them to this one, the pain and struggle and triumph, the laughter and tears and endless love. She thought about the scared physical therapist who had walked into a billionaire's office needing money for her mother's treatment, and the angry, broken man who had been too proud to accept help. Neither of them had known that day what they were about to find in each other. Neither of them had been looking for love or healing or salvation. But patience had turned into partnership, partnership into love, and love into a lifetime of happiness neither of them had thought possible. And as Logan took her hand and led her back inside to their family, Deanna knew with absolute certainty that every step of the journey had been worth it. Because sometimes the best things in life are the ones you do not plan for. Sometimes healing someone else means healing yourself. And sometimes the patience you give freely becomes the foundation of a love that lasts forever. Their story was not about a dramatic rescue or a fairy tale romance. It was about two broken people who found each other and chose, every single day, to build something beautiful from the wreckage. It was about learning that vulnerability is not weakness, that asking for help takes courage, and that the greatest strength comes from loving someone completely and letting yourself be loved in return. Years later, when Emma was old enough to ask how her parents met, Diana and Logan would tell her a simplified version of the story. They would leave out the pain and the trauma and the desperate financial need that brought Diana into Logan's life. Instead, they would tell her about patience and perseverance, about how sometimes the best things in life require hard work and dedication, and the willingness to keep showing up even when it is difficult. But privately, between themselves, they remembered every moment. The anger and resistance of those early days, the gradual softening, the moment in the pool when Logan first walked, the first kiss that changed everything, the proposal against the backdrop of city lights, the wedding, the baby, the life they built together piece by careful piece. And they were grateful for all of it. Every painful step, every small victory, every moment of doubt and fear and eventual triumph. Because all of it had led them here, to this life full of love and joy and the kind of happiness that comes from truly knowing and being known by another person. Logan kept a photograph on his desk at work, taken on their wedding day. In it, Diana was laughing at something he had said, her face radiant with joy, and he was looking at her like she was the only person in the world. Sometimes, during long meetings or stressful days, he would glance at that photo and remember where he had been and where he was now. Remember the woman who had refused to let him give up, who had seen past his anger to the scared man underneath, who had loved him at his worst and his best and every moment in between. Diana kept a different photograph in her wallet, this one taken during one of their early therapy sessions. Logan was in the parallel bars, sweating and gritting his teeth with effort, and Diana was beside him with her hand hovering near his back, ready to catch him if he fell. Looking at it, you could see the determination on both their faces, the bond already forming between them even when neither of them had realized it yet. That photograph reminded Diana that the greatest love stories are not always the easiest ones. Sometimes love means showing up when the person you care about is at their worst and choosing to stay anyway. Sometimes love means being the steady presence that allows someone else to fall apart and put themselves back together. Sometimes love means being patient when everything in you wants to rush, or pushing when everything wants to be gentle, or knowing exactly which one is needed at any given moment. Their children would grow up in a house full of laughter and warmth, where they saw their parents kiss each other goodbye every morning and say "I love you" before bed every night. They would see their father, who walked with a barely perceptible limp, and sometimes used a cane on days when his back hurt, treating their mother like she was the most precious thing in the world. They would see their mother, who balanced her own physical therapy practice with being a devoted wife and parent, looking at their father like he hung the moon, and they would grow up believing that love was supposed to be like that, patient and fierce and enduring, full of laughter and respect and genuine partnership, the kind of love that weathers storms and celebrates victories and shows up every single day without fail. On their 10th anniversary, Logan took Diana back to the place where he had proposed, the same spot overlooking the city where he had knelt down and asked her to be his wife. They left the kids with Diana's parents and spent the evening just the two of them, drinking champagne and remembering. "Do you have any regrets?" Diana asked as they stood at the window, Logan's arms around her waist just like that first night. "About how we started, I mean. Do you ever wish you had met me some other way when you were not injured and I was not your therapist?" Logan was quiet for a moment, considering the question seriously. "No," he said finally, "because then I would not know what we're capable of together. I would not have seen you at your strongest, fighting for me when I could not fight for myself. I would not have learned what real love looks like when it is tested. We built this from the ground up, Deanna. We chose each other every day, even when it was hard. Maybe especially when it was hard. That means something." "It means everything," Deanna whispered, turning in his arms to kiss him. "To 10 more years," Logan said, touching his glass to hers. "To 100 more years. To forever if we are lucky enough to have it." "To forever," Deanna echoed, and she meant it with all her heart, because their love story was not about luck or fate or destiny. It was about choice. The choice to be patient, the choice to be vulnerable, the choice to keep loving even when it was scary or difficult or uncertain. And those choices, made over and over again day after day, had built something stronger than any fairy tale romance. They had built a life, a family, a love that would endure whatever came next. And as they stood there together, watching the city lights sparkle below them, Diana thought about that frightened young woman who had walked into a billionaire's office 5 years ago desperately needing money for her mother's treatment. She wished she could go back and tell that woman that everything would be okay. More than okay. That the angry man in the wheelchair would become the love of her life. That her patience would turn into his salvation and her own. That the next chapter of her life was about to begin, and it would be more beautiful than anything she could have imagined. But that woman had not needed to know. She had just needed to show up and do the work and be brave enough to fall in love when it was the last thing she expected. And Diana had done all of that and more. She had helped a billionaire heal from trauma, unaware her patience would plant itself so deeply into his heart that it became the foundation of everything they built together. And in helping him heal, she had healed herself. They had healed each other. And that, Deanna thought as Logan pulled her closer and whispered that he loved her against her hair, was the greatest gift of all. Not the money or the lifestyle or even the family they had created, though she treasured all of it. The greatest gift was finding someone who saw you completely, loved you unconditionally, and chose you absolutely. That was worth everything. That was worth the struggle and the pain and the fear. That was worth showing up for, day after day, year after year. That was love in its truest, most beautiful form. And Diana and Logan would hold on to it, nurture it, and protect it for all the days of their lives. Together.